I've been a fan of anthology movies, anthology horror movies since I was a kid. Ever since I saw Asylum on Channel 38 in Boston sometime in the mid 80s as a youth, I've been a fan of these movies where you get several little stories over the course of a feature-length film. Tales from the Crypt was another one from '72. Creep Show is the one probably most people now would know. Is the latest in that series, disconnected, mind you. The latest horror anthology that I've come to know is a film from 2017 called Nightmare Cinema. I just watched this on Shudder the other day, the horror movie streaming service. This is directed by 5 directors, which I will read to you because I don't want to discredit their reputation or their parentage by not saying their names correctly. It is Alejandro Brugues, who did Juan of the Dead, Spanish zombie movie. You have Joe Dante, Gremlins, Matinee, Howling, on and on and on. Mick Garris, Sleepwalkers, The Stand, all kinds of stuff. Ryuhei Kitamura, who did Midnight Meat Train and Versus, and David Slade, who did Hard Candy, 30 Days of Night, and a lot of other stuff. Each of those guys does 1 or 2 segments in this Nightmare Cinema anthology. Stars Mickey Rourke as the projectionist. And basically the concept here is somebody's walking down a lonely street at night. They see this old style movie marquee lit up with something on the marquee that speaks to them, whether it's their name or some word or phrase that connects with them. They walk into the movie theater. They're the only one there. They sit down in a seat and the screen lights up and they see themselves in a film. So we're whisked into these little stories about their, much like Tales from the Crypt or any one of these horror films, somebody is foretelling what their future might be. So this is, a possible future this person might be experiencing. And I thought it was ultimately not that great. It started off for me strong with what looked like a slasher movie spoof. Pretty good special effects, pretty good gore, choreography, execution, kind of darkly funny and pretty brutal. And then it flips at one point, and it's not what you expected it was going to be. And right up to the end of it, I kind of enjoyed it. It kind of reminded me of some other things I've seen, but that's okay. I don't mind being reminded of things I've seen if it's entertaining me. Unfortunately, it was kind of downhill from there for me. Some of the segments kind of had an interesting idea, but didn't really go anywhere with it. Some were sunk by not great effects. Some were sunk by just not having a nice little pinpoint, sharp ending on them. I will say the effects were mostly practical and done very well, which was nice to see. And these are all either old school horror directors or people who are fans of 70s, 80s horror when it was done that way. Pretty nicely shot overall. I really wanted to spend time in that movie theater. At this point, I want to spend time in any movie theater, anywhere. But this was a nice old theater, probably LA, I'm assuming. So, I keep coming back to the horror anthology films because with a horror anthology or any anthology movie, if you're not digging the segment you're watching at that moment, you just wait 10 or 20 minutes and there's another one coming. And this is about a 2-hour movie, there's 5 segments or so 20 minutes or so each, and you're done. The concept is good. This easily could be a series if somebody wanted to pick it up. And I don't know if that was the intention of making this sort of a pilot for a potential Shudder TV series or whatever cable channel would pick it up. Ultimately, to me, it wasn't very successful. It's interesting to see what these, directors, all of whom have made successful, good movies, come up with. But much like Masters of Horror, which was the concept between Masters of Horror, if you remember this series from a few years ago, we give these directors free reign. They get X amount of money for a budget and they can do whatever they want to do. And unfortunately, what they did was not good. I don't know what it was, if it was the writing or the budgetary constraints or what, but Masters of Horror, I think there were a couple episodes that I thought were any good. That became a show called Fear Itself, I believe. It moved from cable to NBC, so they had to sort of tone down the content a little. That I thought wasn't any good. And this I didn't think was that great. And again, they've all done great work. Joe Dante, I think, is great. He's a great guy to listen to. He's sort of an icon and a wonderful spokesperson and historian for classic horror. But you have to wonder, you see so many fans who get so excited about, wouldn't it be great if so-and-so would make one more movie? What if John Carpenter would make one more movie? What if Joe Dante would make one more movie? All these people. Romero, well, it's a little late for him. But you have to take a moment and be honest with yourself and say, think about the last couple of movies any of these guys made. Everybody has their prime. Any kind of artist has their prime. And a lot of times their prime is sort of toward the beginning. And you know, doing it one more time for the fans, it doesn't always produce the kind of results you want, unfortunately. So yes, I was interested in seeing what these directors did, these named directors would do with this concept, but I don't want to be harsh and say they don't have any more good movies left in them, but I just didn't think these were very good. Now, I think ultimately it comes down to writing. I don't really think the direction was the problem for the most part in these. Although there was one about a priest, and a priest is fighting off these possessed orphans, and it was just so sloppily done, and it was just silly to me. It just didn't work for me. No insult to any of these people because they've all done great work. I just thought Nightmare Cinema was sadly kind of a wasted opportunity, but good potential. It's one of those things like I always felt about the Saw movies. It's like, I think this is a great idea. I just haven't liked any of these movies. So Nightmare Cinema, great concept. If they said there was going to be a Nightmare Cinema 2, I would absolutely watch that because it's an anthology movie. Who knows what these directors are going to bring? Who knows what the segments are going to be and how good they might be? But for me, sadly, Nightmare Cinema just didn't cut it.